Welcome to the Love, Purpose, Connection podcast. I am your host, Estelle Bingham, and together we'll be delving into the profound meaning of love, the driving force of purpose, and the beauty of connection that shapes the fabric of our lives. In each episode, I sit down with some of the most inspiring individuals out there to understand the ways love has touched them. Rebecca Campbell is an international best-selling author, mystic, artist and speaker. She's a teacher and podcaster and founder of the Inner Temple Mystery School. Her mission is to weave the sacred back into everyday life and help people find their way back to their souls. Her books, oracles, songs and retreats have been translated into over 20 languages, and she's helped transform thousands of people's lives. Welcome, Rebecca, to the Love, Purpose, Connection podcast.
Yay! Well, it's really nice to be here in London. I think last time we were together, we were on a plane, where was it?
We were on a plane flying over from New York to Charleston.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
Adventures were had.
Yeah.
Weren't they? It was fun. It was fun.
It was a very, very fun.
It was a fun time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're here from Glastonbury, so I'm so excited that you're in the building and you've made it. And we are here to talk all things. Your soul had a dream. Your life is it.
Yay.
Super exciting.
Yeah.
Your new book, amazing. Tell me what birthed this one.
Well, physically giving birth this one for sure. I had a mystical experience during my Kirtan teacher training. Kirtan's a form of bhakti yoga, chanting. And it was just down the road, actually, in South Ken. And it completely changed my life. It was one of those spontaneous awakening experiences. And I think anyone who's been on the journey a little while knows that even the spontaneous ones take a long time to integrate.
Yeah.
And so it was really like this 7-year journey that began with that experience. And in between it was 2 babies and also COVID. And so it was really written during a period of really deep change within myself, within the world. And I feel like I'm still receiving from that mystical experience. And all my other books I've written, very clearly I knew exactly what they were doing, exactly who they were for. And this one was a little different. It was written during this period of rebirth. We all go through it. To transform is to change. But I was in this in-between moment. And, my friend, Dr. Mindy, do you know Dr. Mindy?
Yeah, she's wonderful.
She interviewed me the other day, but before that, she sent me a text and was like, Rebecca, do you realize you've written the mystical guide to perimenopause and menopause? And I'm like, is that what it is?
Right.
Yeah. And I think this is what happens when we are going through big periods of change. It takes courage to be in the unknowing. But in order to be that snake that properly sheds the skin to become who we are becoming, we have to release everything we knew and kind of be in that in-between moment. And so this book was written in the in-between moment as I was progressing to a new version of myself. Yeah.
Amazing. I mean, that's an incredible way of sort of just bringing us into all of it. And I love that. So when you wrote your other books, what was sort of happening for you then? What was, what was the sort of, let's kind of peel it back a little bit.
Well, my first book, Light is the New Black, is really, it's a book about life purpose. That book was in me since I was a teenager. I had a vision for it since then. Obviously, I needed to live some life to get it, but it wasn't until just after my Saturn return, so early 30s, big end of my 20s, that I finally had the courage to do it. And so that was really, leaving my previous career. I was a creative director in advertising and stepping into my calling in the work I do now. Now, I'd trained in so many different modalities in the mystic arts. I'd been doing one-on-one work. I had my website on the side, but I was just riding 2 surfboards for a while. And so that book was really, I wrote it to that version of myself, which, we're not alone in our experience. And so as to anyone who had that call and was trying to find the courage to leap into it. Second one was Rise, Sister, Rise. And that was really, that actually came after my first trip to Glastonbury. It came at the Chalice Well Gardens. I heard this phrase, Rise, Sister, Rise, Rise, Sister, Rise. And it really sparked my journey with the sacred feminine. And, discovering how I'd really learned how to make it in a man's world and had ignored my my feminine superpowers, really. So each of my books have been different chapters of my life.
You talk about the sacred feminine in this book too. How does she appear to you, and how do you feel her move through things?
Well, I'd say the way I connect with the sacred feminine now is through connecting with what I would call the goddess. And the goddess has many different faces. If you look at the Celtic tradition, you've got the triple goddess, maiden, mother, crone. Now, earlier in my journey, it was more kind of like Great Mother or Mother Mary, even Mary Magdalene, and Kuan Yin, all of these goddesses. But recently, it's been a call to the dark feminine, the Black Madonna, Inanna, the really powerful Kali type goddesses, where it is, if we look at like nature and the seasons as like archetypes. And so we've got spring, which is maiden, we've got summer, which is mother, but then we've got fall or autumn and winter. And this is really the fierce, darker feminine, which is the wise woman and the wild woman, the crone, the elder. And it is just so clear that those two parts of the feminine have been really kind of like banished and silenced and pushed down. But this is where our power is. This is where our intuition is. And you can obviously connect it in with the different phases of being a woman as well. We know that in society for too long, there's been such a pressure on women to try and look young and fit into a certain size and not be too loud, but, be nice, but, and and I think that perimenopause and menopause as well is when the intuition comes. It's when the rage comes as well. And this is where our power is.
So being a mum also to two young children.
Yeah.
How does that sort of integrate?
I became a mum later in life. So I had my son when I was 38 and my daughter when I was 41.
Right.
And so I was in my perimenopause years. I didn't know it at the time, but it had already begun while I was in postpartum. And what happens when you're in perimenopause is, that part of us as women where we just give. And I look in my 20s and my 30s and how I just gave to my career, for example. And if I had young kids, then it would have spilled over there. But I noticed, and I'm really passionate and fascinated by this, because I don't think we're speaking about it enough, because I've noticed that a lot of older mothers are feeling bad because they don't have this, just hormonally, they don't have the capacity to be in that. And we're not meant to. As we enter that phase of being a woman, it's about saying, no, I'm going to come back to myself. And the intuition comes and we might have brain fog. Like this morning, I put coffee beans where the water was meant to go.
Right.
But you know what? Today, I had a deeper intuition than I've ever had before. And so, this is all part of nature. On the other hand, because I'm further along in my awakening journey than I was then, it's been phenomenal as well, like through the birth and even postpartum, through challenges. But I was able to really observe the initiation that was happening. And so it's kind of, it's both things,
Yeah.
There were two things that I didn't expect with motherhood. The first one was reparenting. I had no clue that as my child was whatever age they were, it would bring up the unhealed parts of me. I wasn't ready for that. And I found that challenging, particularly in the first months of motherhood, because obviously it's pre-verbal, so you don't have a memory of it. You can't remember it.
Yeah.
But again, it's been a huge teaching and so healing and so initiatory. The other thing that I wasn't ready for was, I have devoted my life to living in alignment with my soul for like decades. And I thought that I was doing a really good job at it. Like I thought my life was really integrated with like, my normal life and spirituality, that they were like as one. Yeah. But it wasn't until I had my son that I realized how compartmentalized it still was. Like it had really served me to show up to what I would call a non-negotiable spiritual practice. I just do it for 10 minutes a day. I mean, some days before I had kids, I'd spend way longer than that, but the repetition and the discipline really served me. And it was a morning practice. Now, my son's almost 6. I think I might have shown up for a morning practice maybe 5 times in 6 years now. I just couldn't do it. His cries or my daughter's singing this morning. It's not all bad. That's what wakes me up now. And so I realized how I was going to over here to be spiritual and then coming back to my life. And so the guidance I kept on getting over and over again was, got to find ways to weave the sacred back into the everyday life. And of course, for all of us, we have Indigenous traditions in our ancestry, but for many of us, it's been severed. And so it hasn't been passed down. And so it is this compartmentalization, and we're finding our way back to it. But yeah, that was completely life-changing for me.
Yeah. I mean, because our children are our greatest teachers. I mean,
oh my God.
They really are.
And I'd heard that, but I didn't understand it.
Hi, it's Estelle here, and I'm so excited to share my new book with you, Manifest Your True Essence, Clear Your Blocks, Find Your Joy, Live Your Truth. This is more than just a book. It's an invitation to come home to your heart. Within its pages, you'll find the guidance to reconnect with your true essence. Through gentle meditations, heart-centered practices, and soulful wisdom, you'll learn how to release old patterns, embrace your divine spark, and manifest a life filled with love, purpose, and connection. Remember, you are love, you are light, and you are infinitely powerful.
And how has it been for you, like with teenage years? How's that different?
My son has been one of my greatest teachers. He's so Taurian, he's a Taurus. He's the way that he needs to be loved has, taught me a huge amount about love. And it's wonderful because it's challenging, right? And when you're in it though, especially in the early years, it's kind of, it's less wonderful and just challenging. And you're like, when is this going to end? And teenage has its own set of challenges. It has its own set of challenges. But if you can meet these years, like you say, as really as an invitation to grow and to notice and to listen and to be with the sort of the real stuff that I call it itchy scratchy, it's the itchy scratchy stuff that comes up in us. Exactly what you're saying, where we haven't been parented ourselves and where we have to reparent ourselves in order to meet our children's needs in a very unconditional way. Different parts of ourselves that maybe we hadn't been met, whether it's a teenage self or the teenage part of you or in your early 20s. Just Malachi's always reminding me, and I really love his soul for that. And back to the soul, and I love that the fact that the soul is in the title too. Tell us a little bit about this idea of this moment in time for any readers out there. What are you bringing to them? The wisdom, really, of what that means for you.
Well, there's a couple of things. The first thing is, I believe that we all choose to be here now. In this body, in our ancestral lines, on this planet at this time, and that it is an intense time to be alive. Like, it seems like, particularly those of us on a conscious journey are becoming more and more aware that we're processing what has not been processed before, which can be really confusing as well. And so I think there's a lot of ancestral healing that's happening right now. And I do believe our souls choose our ancestral line based on what will be the perfect match for us, because it really is this pivotal moment in history. And that we are particularly now being called to keep our hearts open to each other. There's so much division happening. You know, it's easy to just blame and be like, or just kind of push it down. But now more than ever, we need to open our hearts to ourselves, open our hearts to each other.
Absolutely.
You just turn on the news and it's just like there's so much doom and gloom. And just like being a mother as well, and you don't need to be an actual mother, like just see young ones come in and you're like, what is this planet that they are inheriting? And I do believe, like I do err on the kind of more hopeful visionary side. Like I think that there is a potential for us to really turn things around, and that there are solutions beyond what we could possibly imagine, you know. I mean, even just, I'm not saying AI is positive or negative. Who knows? I think like anything, it has positive and negative sides. But even just in the past couple of years, the invention of that, for example, is just like, whoa, where did that come from? So I do believe that there are possibilities and futures that we can't even comprehend right now. The earth is ancient. It's going to survive. It doesn't need us. How will we change? How will we adapt and grow?
Yeah, it's a humanity's sort of also relationship with the earth, you know, more of how do we receive the beauty of the earth, you know, that building that relationship is so fundamental for humanity at this time, and how we step into that and you know, by reconnecting with ourselves, it feels like that is the most important way to go.
And then also, because I know that like you've been to Egypt recently,
yes.
were you? Yeah, like visiting places like that, right?
Yeah.
Or anywhere. I live in Glastonbury.
Yeah.
There's ancient stone circles, ancient temples, ancient places like that. And I think that when we visit those places and connect with the land, it like holds memory for us. And perhaps it's soul memory, perhaps it's ancestral memory, maybe it's just in the earth. But I think when we visit these places, something is unlocked within us and potentially the place too. Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
I really believe that. It's why it's important to remember where we are, you know, in the grand lineage
scheme
of that and that scheme of that. And it's definitely sort of past life. You can have a sort of past life connection or an ancestral connection, and it meets in that place. You must find that in Glastonbury.
Oh, totally. I mean, even just like I grew up in Australia, right?
Yeah.
But most of my ancestry, not all, but most of it is of European descent.
Yeah.
Scottish, Irish, bit of Scandinavian, Icelandic. And yeah, when I was 18, I didn't know what it was, but I just knew I needed to come over here. And I didn't know it at the time. I didn't know what a pilgrimage was, but I found myself in these ancient stone circles and just traveling around to these sacred sites without even knowing what I was doing.
Right.
Went back, did university, came back to the UK. And I think that was my ancestry calling me.
Yeah.
But interestingly, when I've always been fascinated by the journey of the soul, what happens when we die. And I had quite extraordinary experiences when I was younger where I experienced like between lifetimes and past lives and all of that. And so that really did, that was the gateway for me on my spiritual path. But when I reflect back, I had through various different parts of my awakening, past life visions and memories, or what I thought were them. And some of them were. But now I'm realizing, no, a lot of them were ancestral.
Yeah.
And just because, you know, this wasn't a tradition that I was taught, the traditions of my ancestry, it's been something that I have like actively learned as I have grown older.
Right.
And so I think there's something about that. Like, for example, the burning times with the witches in the Middle Ages, I just assumed that was a past life. How could I do that? Of course it is linked to my ancestry. But we're so disconnected from extreme things like that.
Yeah.
And I think this is part of what we are remembering and awakening to now. And it is, it's not easy. It's not straightforward. And we all have our own personal syllabus with it. But yeah.
What was it like growing up in Australia?
I was always really connected to nature, and I connected to what I call the whispers of nature, nature spirits and my soul through connecting to nature without having been taught it. It was just innate. But there was this longing for the sacred. I learned to pray in my mum's side of the family, particularly. There's like Catholic. I was raised Catholic, not overtly, it wasn't hardcore, but I learnt to pray, and Mother Mary. It was always Mother Mary for me, who is a face of the goddess for me. And so I always had a deep connection to spirit, but this longing for a home without even knowing what that is or was, I couldn't name it. And I think that longing was happening on two levels. First of all, I think it was the longing for the sacred and the ancestral wisdom to be passed down. And also on top of that, I think it was the soul longing.
Yeah.
You know, I am a believer that our souls have experienced places elsewhere than just here, you know, and that the human experience this life is amazing and challenging. It's so difficult as well. And some of us perhaps have this longing and remembering of a place where it's like the oneness is a little more whole, you know. But, you know, the title of this book, Your Soul Had a Dream, Your Life Is It. We can't spend our time here longing to be someplace else. And I've definitely spent younger years kind of longing for that or searching for that. And then, of course, you realize, oh, the temple's within. It's always been here. But yeah, I think that there was that disconnection of ancestral, but also soul. And I think it's probably why I've ended up in the UK, because it is that. And when I have explored my ancestry, there's literally ancestry from Wiltshire around Somerset as well. So I can track it back. And and the places that I did visit when I did go on that pilgrimage when I was 18, basically all the places of my ancestry, even Scandinavia, Iceland and all of that. And so it's just incredible that like we are all being woven in ways that we can't possibly imagine, you know, and then you find the details in the end, you're like, what?
Yeah. So just listen. It's about listening, isn't it? Also to what your soul is, you know, nudging you towards.
Exactly.
Or, you know, you spoke about the whispers of nature and maybe also listening to the whispers of your soul. Yeah.
How about you? Like, have you always lived in London? Have you always been a Londoner?
Born and bred Londoner. Yeah, East London, you know. For me, what happened with me is that we would go to sacred sites every weekend. And my mum would take me with her boyfriend at the time. The UK has the magic, you know, it has it imbued in the land.
It really does.
It's just a non-negotiable.
Yeah.
It's in the land, it's ancient, it's in the ancient woods, it's in the moss on the bottom of the trees, it's the, you know, the fairies and all of the elementals, and, you know, they are here now, you know. You know, the intelligence of nature, the intelligence of what surrounds us, the more we attune and we become really interconnected with that vibration. So like you say, it can be, if you're looking at the news and you're a mother and there are times when it just, right now, where it just does feel like a lot. We can't sort of spiritually bypass and pretend it's not a lot, you know, otherwise we're spiritually bypassing. It's like, no, we have to really face this and look this really in the eyes and just be very present with this and kind of come back to ourselves and sort of come back into our communities and, like you say, create sacred spaces. And it doesn't have to be, you know, that doesn't have to be you don't have to have anything to do that. You can you can create a sacred space with your breath. Yeah. You know, and sacred communities. I know you've got a community, Rebecca, online, and to feel into that, because during these times, we really need that. It's so important. It's so important to feel safe amongst others, you know, where you can just totally unfurl and just have those moments of, this is a bit much, you know, be in connection to sort of bring you back home to yourself, you know, whatever that looks like in that moment. But you mentioned your 10-minute ritual that I get that you haven't probably got back to in the way that you wanted to get back to it. But I'd love to hear about that, because it's great, you know, just to think about for whoever's listening, what yours look like.
For probably about 10 years, I showed up to a form of meditation where I basically just connect in with the life force of, like, source of the planet and receive, you know. So I just imagine myself being filled up with light, essentially. And I just put it on for 10 minutes. I'd find like a music track that got me into that zone. I did find using the same track over and over again really helped. I preferred that than a guided track. Then I moved on to chanting. And when I chanted, it was like, for the first, months, it was like 3 months, I'd just cry every time I chanted. And there were beautiful tears. It wasn't like grief. It was longing for that connection, that oneness, that Bhakti Yoga does so well. Now what I do, actually there was this period where I just knew my practice wouldn't fill me up in the same way. And it was when I was near the end of my time in London. It was really when I was working with the goddess, and Glastonbury was really calling me, actually. And all I wanted to do was lie on the earth. And so I would go to either Regent's Park or Primrose Hill near where I lived, and I would lie down. And I created this practice after doing it. I just trusted what my body needed. I call it earth pulsing, where I'd lay with my back on the earth and imagine the back of my heart just like pulsing. And you can feel it when you lay down. You can feel the pulse move through the back of your heart. And then I'd imagine the pulse of the planet, that mysterious intelligence that tells the flowers when to bloom, the seasons when to come and go, the tides to roll in and out. And I would ask it to kind of regulate my heartbeat. And I would just lay there with a music track. That was amazing. These days, what I do is when I do my meditation when I go to work, which I do work from home myself, but I'll walk either in nature or I'll go into my office and I'll do a meditation, 5-10 minutes, but then I'll journal, because I find I've got a lot of stuff in my head being in the busyness of my life right now. And so emptying out, similar to like morning pages, Julia Cameron would say. And so emptying that out and then letting grace come in, and it always does. And as a creative, particularly in this modern time where there's so much pressure to produce rather than create, it's this balance between the two. And so that's my biggest challenge. I don't know if you find that yourself.
Well, I think it's just noticing where you can blur, and just I love the way that you're, just it's making sure that you're still getting time for yourself, like whatever that looks like, that you are actually really, really resourcing.
Yeah, you're nourishing, you're resourcing first, because more will come.
Yeah,
that way.
Yeah, 100%. And the journaling's it's always
so good. It's
always
just the best. It's such an underrated spiritual practice. I think it is my favorite.
Well, it's just been such a delight, Rebecca, to have you on this podcast. So lovely.
Thank you.
Really appreciate you coming down. And before we go, your soul had a dream, your life is it. What would you say in a sentence? What would you like people to know about that book in a sentence?
It will help you connect in with what you're really here for, and give you a little bit of courage to just go for it and leap into what's next. Yeah.
We all need a bit of that, 100%. And the words love, purpose, connection, what do they bring up for you?
For me, they all are expressions of exactly the same thing. It's like coming back to the heart, coming back to why we're here, but the thing that connects each and every one of us. It's like go in to connect with each other. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you, my love.
You.
Thank you so much for listening to Love, Purpose, Connection with me, Estelle Bingham. If you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts. I'd really appreciate that. And if you really liked it, then leave me a review so I can keep doing what I love, healing one heart at a time. You can also follow me, Estelle.Bingham, on Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest releases. If you feel in need of some extra guidance, then my book, Manifest Your True Essence, could be helpful. You can find it online or in any major bookshop. In the meantime, thanks again for listening, thanks again for watching, and I will join you on the next episode of the Love, Purpose, Connection podcast.